Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and this is the current buzz. This is COVID-19. We're still in it. People are still wearing masks, and I have 2 shots, so I decided not to wear a mask. So I have Paul Brouillette here from Laer's Realty Partners. We're going to talk about what COVID-19 is doing to the business and ask questions about what's going on in Lowell, Chelmsford, and Greater Lowell. And I'm glad to have you again because you've been on before, Paul. I mean, it was great.
Thank you, Dean.
When you were here
it's nice
last
to be
time.
here.
I don't know. I don't remember the last time you were on, but it was 2 or 3 years ago. And he gives us an update of what's going on in town, how many homes are for sale, and so forth. But the question I want to ask you is this. COVID-19, there's a story, or I've read stories where people are moving out of the city, specifically Boston or New York or whatever. Some are moving to remote places, some are moving to Florida, some are moving to isolated islands, probably. I like that. I wish it was in the GNC or something like that. You know, are people moving from Boston to the suburbs?
The short answer is yes.
Okay, that's all.
We also have a phenomenon where, Dean, lots of people in our area are transitioning their lives into a completely different lifestyle based upon what they've either had to do through events that arose out of COVID, and also many people are just now pursuing their dreams and not putting them off any longer. So we have clients in the Chelmsford area, for example, who are selling their home, moving to the Carolinas. We've had a number of families doing that.
Yeah, a lot of people moving to the Carolinas. What's the reason for the Carolinas? Is it weather?
It's less expensive. It's a milder climate. You can buy a home in the Carolinas for probably 30% or 35 to 40% less than what it would cost you to live in the Boston suburbs. And it's a milder climate. There are also people migrating to Florida, which is not uncommon. You know, people are migrating to other areas as well. I mean, we have some people that are moving out towards the islands, to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. We also have folks that are moving down to the islands, Marco Island area. So people are transitioning in unpredictable ways. You mentioned Boston. As you know, just from your experience driving into Boston, many people have adopted, as a result directly of COVID, have adopted working from home protocols.
Right.
Companies
That's noticeable driving into Boston. I can get into Boston now 35 minutes, clean shot, right into town. There's no problem. And it used to take me 45 to an hour to get in and out of town. Not anymore.
Absolutely. So as a result of that, there are many families now who, once they've realized that they can work from home, they're appealing to their company to find out whether or not they can permanently do that.
Oh, wow.
And in some cases, for example, we have families who have been wanting to move either closer to a child or closer to their parents into a different geographic location, but it might be a long commute for work. So people are appealing to their employers, their companies, to find out whether or not they can work extensively through time from home. And in cases where they get granted that opportunity, people are making the residential transition, knowing that they can work from home. They may be moving an hour or 2 from the local Merrimack Valley. In some cases, they're moving out of state, and they can still work remotely. So the world has changed as a result of COVID-19. Many people didn't realize they could work from home. Many companies didn't realize they could continue to succeed under the prospect of working from home. And that's true in my line of work as well. We have a 4-person team at Laer Realty that helps people.
That's in Chelmsford, Massachusetts.
Right in Chelmsford, yep. Right at Chelmsford Street, the corner of Golden Cove and Chelmsford. Laer Realty Partners is located right next door to Moonstones. And for the last 35 years, we've had an office location there, which we still do. But my 4-person team has, for the most part, decided that we're going to work from our home offices, and we're interconnected with digital phone and computer systems so that we seamlessly work as one office in 5 different locations. And we, are able to just communicate with one another and with our clientele as if nothing happened. Most of our clients would presume that we work in one office space, but with technology, many things are
So
changed.
what about home visits? Has that changed? I mean, are you still doing home visits, or are they remote?
We
or-
still do home visits, but to be perfectly frank, we are actually doing Zoom presentations to list property. We sometimes will have a telephone, a video call with a client who will walk through their home and show us their home. And oftentimes we evaluate a property without going into it.
Wow.
Sometimes we're having virtual showings of properties where the properties are being shown by professional photographs, video tours, et cetera, as opposed to a physical tour. Some clients don't want any people in their home, and yet they want it sold. So in those rare instances, we either have nobody going into the home, everyone is making their purchase based upon a visual observation from electronic media,
Right.
or in some cases, what we'll do is we'll abide by COVID protocols where the real estate professionals, they are obligated to wear a mask, gloves, sometimes booties, or removing shoes. And in many cases, what will happen is for a given showing of a property, it's limited in many cases to 3 people. So it'd be the real estate agent and potentially 2 purchasing candidates. And we also
Per hour or per
visit.
Wow.
Right. And part of the COVID protocol is that we do not have overlapping showings, so that if someone's going to be showing the property from 2 to 2:15, the next party has to wait until the first party's vacated before the second party goes into the property.
Wow. What about building inspectors? I mean, do they go physically? They must go physically. You have to go physically.
Home inspectors,
Home inspectors, I'm
are still
sorry.
going through a property to conduct a home inspection.
Right, okay.
That does still occur.
Okay.
In some cases, sellers prefer not to have a home inspector, but more frequently than that, Dean, in this market, because there's so little inventory, I don't know if you know, in Chelmsford right now, there are only 8 single-family homes available in the market.
Wow.
And there are
Only 8?
And there are only 12 condominiums for sale in this market.
Wow.
In a town of 35,000 people. That's not a lot of options for people who want to move. So what we're finding is that home inspections are actually being curtailed because the competition to buy homes is so intense that many times buyers are waiving the home inspection
Wow.
to their own disadvantage so as to increase the value of their offer in the eyes of a seller and have increased the likelihood of having their offer accepted.
As an agent, would you advise that? Not to have
That's a great question. As a real estate professional, if I'm advocating for a buyer, then I will inform the buyer that having an inspection would be to their best interest.
Right. No doubt.
In one context, and that's the context of being protected.
Right.
In a different
It's like an insurance policy.
But in a different context, the buyer has to recognize that if they do mandate that home inspection, and like in a case that we had last week, we had a home in Chelmsford, Dean, which was on the market for a week. And we allowed 2 open houses. There were 72 registered showings.
Holy.
And we had over 100 people at the Saturday open house, and over 80 people attended the Sunday open house, for a total of over 360 people that migrated through the home.
You're kidding me.
The family had to move away from town in order to allow all of this traffic. And then they had their home sanitized by a professional cleaning company.
Wow.
And they're waiting 2 days so that there'll be a safe environment for them to bring their children back to.
Wow.
Now, at the end of that process, we generated 31 offers, and the property actually sold for
What over? What was it?
nearly $90,000 over the asking price.
Wow.
Yeah. So the bottom line is that buyers in that context are waiving home inspections as a contingency.
At this moment.
Many cases, buyers are waiving an appraisal contingency. So if the property sells at this level and appraises at this level, the buyer says, don't worry, we'll make up the difference. Buyers are waiving financing contingencies, even though they may only have 25% down. They're taking the risk of losing a deposit or figuring out how to get the money together. It's a very unusual market, which is causing buyers to take huge risks in order to make their offer more attractive to the sellers and consequently have a greater likelihood of securing one of those very few properties that are available for sale.
So it's a seller's market. Is that what they call it?
It's probably the strongest seller's market I've seen in 48 years, Dan.
No kidding.
Absolutely, yep.
No kidding. But where are these people coming from? You said you had 300 people coming through.
We had
Where
a
were
number
they
of
from?
people that were coming from right outside of Boston. We had people coming from Boston, both brokers and buyers. We had people coming down from New Hampshire. We had people coming from Western Massachusetts. We had people coming from out of state. Bottom line is that you just never know. I mean, there's so much transition going on in the country, much less the world. People's lives are changing dramatically, and they're coming from
They do foolish
unpredictable
things.
places.
You had Money Magazine saying that Chelmsford was the 14th best community in the country. You have Boston Magazine in September said that Chelmsford High School was the 30th, and I think that dropped down from 55 to 30. So people want to come into town and have their children educated in the Chelmsford school systems. Is that what people look at too anymore, or?
People look at school systems. They look at the community in terms of what is being made available in the community. What are the school systems offering? What's the crime level in the community? Some people actually look at some of the demographics involving income. Some people examine demographics involving what is the population age. People look at different criteria. In times past, people would be very focused on what is the commuting time to wherever they work. And if it happened to be Boston, then Chelmsford was sort of on that outer fringe of, Route 495, and then 128 is a closer proximity. But one of the reasons many people are moving out of the cities now, out of Boston and the immediate suburbs, is that single-family homes in towns like Somerville and Medford, where 20, 30 years ago, when we were buying our first homes, those homes would be going for $200,000. Today, a single-family home in the towns of Somerville and Medford can be upwards of $800,000 to $1 million for a single-family home. So the prices are escalated to such a level that people are being forced away from the city, and so they're moving further out into suburbs like Chelmsford and Westford and the surrounding areas.
Well, my understanding is also people who lived in apartments or small condos were staying at home and finding it confining, in the sense that they had small apartments and they wanted to have something because they were going to be home all day or most of the day. And then you have now you have services that bring your food to your house. I mean, I forgot the names, but Uber's one of them, and they bring food to your house, so you don't have to leave your home.
Not to mention that many restaurants are surviving by actually doing takeout and doing delivery, because fewer people are actually dining out these days, as you know.
Right. Let me ask you this question. What's going to happen to commercial property, the box stores, the box buildings? I mean...
Well, there sort of is an inverse effect happening here. Residential property, over the course of the last 6 to 8 months, has been appreciating in value dramatically.
Right.
Statistics say probably in the range of 8.8% appreciation per year in our general area.
Wow.
And that's what's happened residentially. To answer your question regarding commercial property, because so many fewer people are actually going to the brick and mortar commercial locations, there is becoming a diminishing need for those properties, and so commercial properties are declining in value, still having to pay whatever the tax rate is for their respective towns, and where the values are declining, there's less demand, and so commercial properties are, in many cases, they're remaining on the market for a longer time, and their market values is softening.
You know, what my concern is in regards to these buildings, because a lot of law firms, the people are working from home. So what happens is these buildings are not being used, not being utilized, and they're not flushing water through the system and so forth. I mean, it's just stagnant water in these buildings. And what happens in situations like that, you get Legionnaires' disease, and you have to be careful with that. So in hotels and places like that, in some hotels, you have to flush every day. I mean, somebody has to go to these rooms and flush every day.
Is that right?
Run the water
I didn't
and so
realize
forth.
that.
Yeah. It's so it's very interesting what's happening. We had a situation, in the 1917 to 1918s, we had influenza, and you know what happened after after that. In the 1920s, they call it the Roaring Twenties. So we're back into we may be, after this is over, back into the Roaring Twenties.
You're talking about the Spanish flu?
Yeah.
And the aftermath of that?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we will have some degree of liberation and opening up and people
Right.
returning to normalcy. Obviously, many
Whatever is
families
normal.
have been, right, whatever normal is, whatever that new normal is. Obviously, many families have been adversely impacted by death, disease, and long haulers disease from this virus. It's really had a very detrimental impact on our communities and on the entire country. I think it's important in the context of everything challenging that's happened for us to remember to honor those heroes that we have, the people who are frontline workers, people who are in hospitals, doctors, nurses, people working in nursing homes, bus drivers, people in the grocery stores, people who have to show up and deliver food,
And the grocery stores.
people who drive trucks, people who are really keeping the wheels of our economy going, food-wise, medication-wise. The CVS workers who are working triple shifts here to keep everybody healthy. So it's really important that we take our hats off to all of the real heroes who have assisted people who had to die in a hospital bed without their families. And it's just an enormous sacrifice that those people have made. And
500,000
we can't say
plus.
enough to thank those people.
No, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, so you think there'll be a fundamental change? You think there may be a bust in the real estate market in 5 years or something?
What I see happening, Dean, as far as the real estate market, is that the low inventories that we're experiencing right now, I think in many cases are because people are reluctant to want to have strangers come through their home with the potential risk
good point.
of getting sick.
Good point.
And I think that has been a major dampening of people's willingness to open their door to having traffic come in. So I believe once our country is fully vaccinated, which hopefully will happen in the summer or the fall of this year, 2021, then hopefully late in the year we'll begin to see some loosening up of inventories increasing in the real estate market, more homes available, people being freer about moving around. Hopefully it'll make it easier for first-time buyers and second-time buyers to find an affordable home with a larger range of inventories available. The competition won't be so chaotic.
You know, it's amazing that I see property in Boston and greater Boston. We're talking Newton, Brookline, and those communities. I mean, some of those new condos are going for $1 million, $2 million. It's amazing that you see that. It's almost like New York City. It's crazed.
Yeah, when you and I first bought our homes 30 some odd years ago, you could afford a home. Today, young people see, even to buy a two-family, which used to be a very affordable way to step into the marketplace, Dean, two-family homes in Lowell, for example, right now, where there are many multifamilies that exist, it's very difficult to find a two-family home available
Or
for
a
less than,
three-family.
or a three-family for less than $400,000. And it's not unusual for a two or three-family home to range in price between $400,000 and $800,000, which is a tremendous increase in value and in price that it costs the first-time buyer to get into as to what it was even a year or two ago.
Yep. Well, I know people bought homes for their children who are going to college in Boston. They bought condos, and now, when the child graduates, they'll be. You said it went up 8% in 4 years. 8%. I mean, that's a pretty good take if they made the investment early.
Well, there are different segments of the market. When you talk about condominiums, there's a slightly less appreciation as to what you see with single-family homes. And if you're looking at property in Boston, it's a completely different market. Just as in New York City, there's so many people migrating out of New York City, so many migrating out of Boston, that in some cases it's causing the values to stabilize.
Good point. When I was in the North End, I was talking to some people that have apartments for rent, and they can't find people to rent their apartments. I mean, it's completely changed.
It's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, especially in the North End, Beacon Hill, and so forth. So, I mean, it's like, oh, wow, this is interesting.
You know, we have to applaud the government for establishing moratoriums on evictions and foreclosures, because think about it, Dean. Some families who have lost their business, of which there are tens of thousands of families that have lost their business, right now their priority is to feed their family and to just deal with the very bare essentials of keeping a family alive.
And don't forget,
moving
gasoline's
forward.
going up a little bit too.
So when you
So,
add
I mean,
all those costs into play, some people are on the verge of losing their apartments or losing their homes, and hopefully we'll all get through this over
Yeah,
the next
I
few
hope
months,
so.
and people will be able to survive and recuperate from the losses they've experienced.
I had a lot of questions to ask you, but we disintegrated into COVID and what's going on. My question is in regards to a first-time home buyer. Get your credit score squared away before you buy a home, if they're looking.
Right. Anytime someone wants to buy a home, the basics that they should know are, first and foremost, it helps if you have a credit score of at least 640. If you don't, it's a good idea to speak with either a real estate professional or a loan originator and get directed to someone who can help with credit repair.
Yeah. First of all, you can get your credit report every year. So send for your credit report. You go online and you could download it, and you could request your credit report. And you could go from there. And then, what you 640? What's the number?
If you have a credit rating of 640, you can typically secure a very attractive interest rate.
Okay.
You can get one of the most attractive interest rates available, and you would qualify for a loan based upon your income and your affordability.
Do you know what the highest is?
Highest credit rating is 850.
850. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm in that ballpark.
Good for you.
I also, is it good to get a pre-approved mortgage? New home?
It's not only good to get a pre-approved mortgage if you want to enter into
How
this
do you do that?
marketplace. Contact a real estate, a mortgage originator or a bank, depending upon which direction you want to go in, and you submit all of your pay stubs and your income. They do a credit check on you, and they'll give you a list of different criteria that you
Earned
need to
income
submit.
and unearned income?
Pardon me?
Earned income and unearned income?
That's correct. You want to, and you abide by whatever your loan originator wants you to provide for documentation.
Right.
And not only do you need a pre-approval in this marketplace, but many lenders now are offering a full approval, subject to an appraisal and a purchase and sale agreement. So some lenders are actually processing the entire loan, subject to getting an appraisal on a property and having a purchase and sale that identifies a property.
Do you like the local banks in this area in regards to getting a loan from them?
There's nothing wrong with working with local banks. One of the challenges that people have are that when they work with the loan originator has a wider menu of different options. And in some cases, a local bank will have a minimum standard which doesn't satisfy a client's need.
I
So
see.
in that case, if they go to a loan originator, they may, for example, have a 580 credit score or 575 credit
Okay.
score. And with a loan originator, they can actually have greater latitude to get approved
I
or
see.
pre-approved.
I see. Yeah, I like the banks in the area myself. I mean, yeah, you could go knock on the door and say, hey, listen, there's a little problem with my payment. Can you help me with it? And they generally will.
Yeah, we're blessed with a lot of great companies
Yeah.
locally. Absolutely, Dean.
Yeah, that's good. Jesus, time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
We're less than a minute. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it very much. I'm gonna fist bump you, and
We appreciate it. It's always good to see you,
It's
Dean. I'm
always
glad
good.
that you've been able to have the benefit of being vaccinated fully. I was fortunate to have my first
good for
vaccination
you.
shot.
Good for
You know,
you.
us older folks, they're favoring us. There is now an advantage to being older in the community, isn't there?
the only time, right? Yeah. So I mean, I'm glad things are going well. Only 8 homes, huh? That are
8 homes for
available.
sale in town. So